Don't worry, Dave. All we want to do is kill you.
Hello you demons and happy Friday. Oh my gosh, it is so nice to be back. Thank you so much for allowing me to take just a short little 1-week vacation because we are about to dive into one of my personal favorite cheesy B-rated scary movies. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I don't mean to put disrespect on the name. I'm here to talk to you about an elevated, ahead of its time, beautifully casted movie known as Killer Klowns from Outer Space. Now this thing aged, I will say, like a fine milk. Now let's just get some preliminary information out of the way. This movie cost a whopping $1.8 million. You heard that right. $1.8 million to produce and made a total of $352. That's it. You thought I was going to say 1,000. No, checked on the wiki, checked on a different website, and apparently that's what it made back in its revenue. Now, I don't know about royalties, I don't know about, all these things that bought rights to it, but the most expensive prop on set cost $7,000, and it was a popcorn gun. That's right. We're going to be looking at that scene in just a second, but just know that that popcorn gun cost them $7,000 to make. Now, I don't know about you, and I could be talking out of my butt here, but I can think about maybe 10 different ways to make a popcorn propelling gun that, albeit range from very rudimentary to very complicated, but just $7,000 for a popcorn gun? Now, final fact before we dive into this movie, apparently one of the biggest drama points about the movie wasn't about the cast, wasn't really about, getting rights to certain things or even the clown suits. It was the fact that the vehicles that they had rented were rentals, so they couldn't do anything, too extreme, but they said, now, what better way to start off a movie about killer clowns other than Makeout Creek? Because that's where this movie starts. Now, over in Makeout Creek is where we're introduced to our two main characters, Mike and Debbie. Debbie has a normal last name. Mike's last name is Tobacco. That's right. I have no idea why, but apparently the production was like, hey, let's make Mike's name Mike Tobacco. On top of that, we are introduced to the two gag characters known as Rich and Paul. Now, these guys are going to be popping up here and there, and they come up in a very controversial moment later on in the film, but we'll get to that. Don't worry. I will be very much reviewing their sins. After Rich and Paul are inevitably booed out of Makeout Creek because they tried to sell ice cream to those people, we are greeted to the most wholesome man and his dog relationship that I have ever seen. This old country farmer and his dog named Pooh Bear are so excited to go check out this possible meteorite because why?
I want to have helicopters and airplanes and tacos.
Because he's excited that there's going to be a fair, and they're going to be rich, and that they're going to have hot dogs. Hot dogs, for God's sake. He's excited about that. Like, this man's desires are so plain yet so wholesome. So the wholesome squad goes in to investigate this possible meteorite and be excited and all that. But unfortunately, Pooh Bear is kidnapped. You heard me. Pooh Bear gets kidnapped by a killer clown from outer space with a big net. Yeah. And very appropriately, the farmer says, I'll tear this place apart with my bare hands. I would too. After my dog gets kidnapped like that, I'd be doing everything in my power to get him back. That is probably the one and only character I feel genuinely bad for in this movie. The rest of the townsfolk are just really terrible people. I'm not gonna lie, they're jerks. They're just straight up jerks. They then moved the focus to the town where we meet two cops known as Dave and Officer Mooney. Now, Dave he's awesome. You know, he's like the Leon Kennedy of the group. He's like the bright-eyed, you know, recruit fresh out of the academy. Mooney, on the other hand, Mooney's the type of cop that gets like 2 weeks vacation, no pay type of cop. You know what I mean? Okay, you know what I mean. During this scene that explains this all, we see Mooney practically brutalizing these two people that I believe him or Dave brought in, calling them like scum and just like berating them because they were, you know, carrying wine from one place to another. Mind you, these two people are like chill. They look like punks, but like they're being generally chill. And Dave has to constantly reel Mooney back in from losing his job. He even threatens him.
I swear, Kurt, you and that badge of yours will be history.
We then see those two characters in their dynamic. We go back to Makeout Point, where Mike and Debbie see the same shooting star that Pooh Bear and the farmer saw. Mike and Debbie are able to infiltrate this Bigtop spaceship thing, and they quickly find out that this is not just an ordinary, you know, circus. This is a spaceship. They eventually stumble across the cotton candy room. This is where they nearly encounter one of the killer clowns from outer space. Curious and all, they go to see what is exactly inside these cotton candy bulbs, only to find a human face. That's right, these clowns are harvesting humans and holding them up in their cells with cotton candy bulbs.
Joe Lombardo.
And I don't know if you caught that, but just in case you didn't, Joe Lombardo was the man found inside the cotton candy. That's right, the Joe Lombardo. Do you know who he is? I don't know. His name is brought up first and last name multiple times throughout this movie, so get used to that. Seeing this, obviously, they freak out and they try to escape, but this is when the clowns capture them, and when we see the overly expensive popcorn gun that I think only shot once in a scene, and the rest is just popcorn getting shot from like outside of the frame or something like that. But hey, those $7,000 well spent on the one scene, right? Now, after narrowly escaping their popcorn death, they run out into the forest back to the town to alert the cops. This is when the killer clowns from outer space see this as a perfect opportunity to follow them into the town to collect more humans. Oh, and how do they track these guys? None other than their trusty balloon dog. My whole theory with these clowns is that unless it's funny, they don't have the superpower. Now, this is when Mike and Debbie go down to the cops and they tell the good cop and the bad cop, hey, there's killer clowns from outer space. They're trying to kill us. And of course, you know, Mooney, being the jerk he is like, so you're telling me there's
Killer clowns from outer space.
Now, this is when our trio branch off and validate that killer clowns from outer space are in fact invading and kidnapping these people. Wait, what does that truck say in the background? Bigtop. Hello! Meanwhile, we get to see what antics the clowns are up to. One of them is putting on a puppet show for this guy whose only line is to just laugh and enjoy the play and, you know, get kidnapped. But this clown that pops out of the puppet show, horrifying. And before you say anything like, oh, the killer clowns from outer space aren't that scary, for those of you who have been through the Halloween Horror Nights Killer Clowns from Outer Space maze, you know what I'm talking about. Not only are these guys like 7 foot minimum, but they are intimidating when they are like this close to you. So remember how I referenced that these townsfolk are just complete jerks? We start to see more and more of it, and like this is why my main 2 characters that I was rooting for were the farmer and Pooh Bear, because we start to see these bikers go and just start bullying this tiny clown. And of course, in clown fashion, he turns into Mike Tyson and proceeds to punch the biker's head off for breaking his bike motorcycle thing.
What are you gonna do?
Knock my block off.
Yeah, he wasn't harvested. He was just straight up killed. You know who else was just killed and not harvested? This guy in the car who gets driven off the side of the road. Mind you, rental, very expensive to throw that thing off the side of the hill. But you know what the killer clowns of outer space people said? Another drop in the bucket will make millions after this movie. So this is, of course, when the townsfolk start calling in these attacks of killer clowns from outer space. And what does Mooney do as the responsible police officer?
They took your wife away in a balloon? Well, you don't need a police pal, you need a psychiatrist.
He thinks that everybody is pulling a prank on him, trying to say, oh, let's drive him out with these pranks. He is literally the worst cop ever. Is this police force made up of just Dave and Mooney? Like, are there no other police officers that are like, hey, maybe we should investigate. Maybe it's somebody wearing clown makeup, or, you know, maybe it's people trying to kill wearing clown masks or something. Like, I don't know. But what about our group? What happened to them? So Debbie is dropped off out of safety.
All right, Debbie, you got a choice. Well, either go home or I'm going to take you back to the station and lock you up for safekeeping. How's that?
Meanwhile, Mike and Dave go out to validate the killer clowns. And of course, they do come across them. They stumble across this clown putting on an epic shadow puppet show and see the group of people watching get eaten by a dinosaur clown shadow puppet. Now, this is the part where I actually really like it, because this is when Mike's like,
Get him, Dave! Kill him!
now Mike and Dave have seen enough. They can for sure validate that killer clowns from outer space have in fact invaded. But you know who hasn't? Mooney. This is when Mooney encounters one of the clowns and is killed by him. Now, after Mooney is dealt with by one of our hero clowns, we get to see what this popcorn stuff that they've been throwing around actually is. It's creepy, weird clown worm things. These are just gross little wet puppets, the best way I could describe it. Mike and Dave then see that the clowns are collecting the people that they've harvested from their house in a huge comical parade and going back to the big top with their bountiful harvest of practically the entire town. But we get to see this really funny scene where these clowns come across the security guard that's trying to stop them from, you know, continuing on. Now, what do the clowns do to get rid of this security guard?
What are you gonna do with those pies, boys?
But here's something that I want you to notice. The first clown to throw a pie just completely misses him. Could you imagine being that guy during the whole movie to just... Oh. While Mike and Dave are on their way to see where all these clowns are taking these people, they come across the Goon Squad, Rich and Paul, whipping an ice cream machine like you've never seen before. They figure out that Debbie has been in fact kidnapped by the killer clowns from outer space, and they gotta go save her from the big top. Cue our final act, where the boys save the Debster. It's revealed that clowns can in fact be killed, and they do have a fighting chance. By how, you may ask? That's apparently just how clowns are gonna die in this universe. So Mike, Dave, Rich, and Paul then go on the mission to save the Debster. But Rich and Paul are comically trapdoored into this weird compartment where they come across two clown girls. Yes, this is the sin I was referring to. You know damn well what happened. This is on par with, like, the female gremlin. Like, were you okay, 80s or 70s? Were you guys alright? With Rich and Paul finally out of the way, Mike and Dave are then able to lock in and focus on the main mission of saving Debbie. So they go around, they start killing clowns. Dave is just being this really badass Leon Kennedy hero. Mike is there.
Come on, open the door!
Another door! Another door! Another door!
But that is when this mega boss Springtrap looking puppeted clown comes out. Now this thing is horrifying and gigantic, but luckily and unluckily, the two brothers, Rich and Paul, are there to help save them, and with kiss marks all over their face. But luckily, the hero of the scene is there, the gigantic clown, to pick up the brothers in the ice cream truck, toss them across the entire spaceship, only for them to blow up and perish in a fiery car accident? Dave holds back the giant clown in a last attempt heroic effort while Mike and Debbie escape the big top as it's about to take off. Luckily, Dave does the one thing he knows how to do and kills that clown with his police badge by blowing up its nose. But unfortunately, it is not enough time, and Dave proceeds to explode in the big top spaceship with the rest of the town. Psych, I'm just kidding. The rest of the town dies, but Dave, he knew that if he got in the clown car that was behind him, it wouldn't explode in the explosion and he'd land directly behind the main characters watching him. Dave's just like that, man. He knows. But it wasn't just Dave's massive intelligence that saved him. It was the fan service that did. That is right. The first go-around of Killer Klowns was supposed to have Dave die in the explosion in space. But luckily, he had all the Dave fans out there, me included, have him survive to the end of the movie. That's right. We did it, baby. And that is how Killer Klowns from Outer Space wraps up. The entire town and the clowns die in the explosion except those 5 main characters. Thank you guys so much for watching this very quick review of Killer Klowns from Outer Space. Now, there was a lot I didn't mention, obviously, because I want you guys to go watch it and experience it on your own. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more funny, spooky content like this, and hit the bell to be reminded when I upload videos. I know I've been trying to be a little bit more consistent, but it's always going to be on a Friday. And, as always, all you demons, stay spooky. Bye-bye.